I'm delighted to introduce Jim, who many of you will already know. Jim McIntosh is BSBI's most long-standing member of staff and has been doing a fabulous job as Scottish Officer, promoting botany and supporting botanists in Scotland since 2004. Jim also manages BSBI's country team and the Island Officer, and he edits our monthly Recorder e-newsletter. And Jim's also county recorder for Mid-Perth. So over to you, Jim, then.
Okay, so here are some highlights of the BSBI's work in Scotland since the last Scottish Botanists Conference a year ago. 20 slides in 20 minutes. It's been another weird year, hasn't it? But quickly, before I launch, I should just say that this image is taken in Glen Affric on Sgurr Cernan, which is one of the highest mountains in the Northwest Highlands, and a brilliant week of weather, botanizing, looking for rare Arctic alpines with Dan Watson, Matt Parrott, and Jeff Waddell. However, I'll say no more. I won't steal Jeff's thunder. Jeff's giving me a talk on that trip this afternoon. But it was just, don't you just want to be there? It looks amazing. So the first thing in our calendar was the New Year plant hunt. And the idea of the New Year plant hunt is that volunteers submit lists of native and non-native plants they find actually in flower in the wild during a 3-hour walk over the first 4 days of the new year. Results are submitted online via smartphones or computer. Photographs can be included, and we collected loads of records. Far more than in previous years. And we think part of that, the reason for the fact more people got involved was that at the time, if you remember back, we're still in lockdown. And so only people could only go out individually or in small family groups, husbands and wives. So we had lots more smaller groups going out. The full report is available to download. But the report is similar to previous year's reports. About half of all species that are flowering were flowering late. So these are species that flower in late summer and autumn, and they're hanging on. About a quarter were flowering early, so spring flowers that started a bit early. And about a quarter were flowering because it's the time of year when they normally flower. So things like Metastases, fragrans, winter heliotrope, or they were flowering, there were species which flower all year round, like annual meadowgrass. So it's great fun. It gathers lots of useful records, and the dates for the 2022 New Year plant hunt are the 1st to the 4th of January. So get involved. Our next major event in Scotland was the Scottish Spring Conference. So sadly, the 2020 conference had to be cancelled because it was scheduled about 1 week after the first lockdown. And I was ill in hospital, so that definitely didn't go ahead. So it was really great to organise the Spring Conference in 2021, albeit online. But the great thing about that is we had a tremendous number of people participate, more than twice the number that had ever been to one of these conferences before. We had about half a dozen talks on a Saturday morning in early spring. Some great talks, actually. Al Wake did a brilliant talk on mountain flowers, really nicely illustrated. And there's a repeat of Stuart Ardayer's talk on the restoration of Carafern wildwood. if you remember, we first tried to show this talk at last year's SBC, but it was completely marred by gremlins. But he showed it again, and I cannot recommend it high enough. It is truly inspirational. The work that's gone on at Caravan is brilliant. So next year's spring conference will be on the 26th of March. Take for your back. And in this weird new world we're living in, we don't have to travel to conferences anymore. I chair the Irish, or help chair the Irish Spring Conference, and loads of people from Scotland come to it. Well, Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, and France, and beyond. Again, all the talks are recorded and are free to view. There's some brilliant talks. The BSBI is creating a fantastic back catalogue of training videos and conference talks. They're all free to view. I cannot recommend them enough. So we had hoped to return to face-to-face workshops in 2021 after cancelling our entire programme in 2020, but it just wasn't to be. But Aileen Meek did a fantastic job in converting our beginners identifying wildflower families workshop into an online format, and she delivered it brilliantly, clearly, and it was very popular. The talk was based on Faith Anstey's pocket guide to wildflower families, and could be viewed on our website. We experimentally converted our face-to-face grass workshop to be online, and innovatively used fresh specimens of grasses, which we collected the week before the workshop, numbered up and posted out to the 15 participants. So they each got a batch of a dozen species, which we looked at in breakout sessions with individual tutors, each with an individual tutor during the workshop. And another innovation is that we gave participants homework to do to consolidate that newfound learning, to get people looking at grasses. So we asked them to go and collect grasses and identify them and send them to us with their idents. So both these training workshops have been viewed over 1,000 times now online. Thank you to all the volunteers in the BSBI outreach group who have contributed to those initiatives. It seems that folk are finding it really hard to kick the habit of Atlas 2020 recording after 20 years of it. Now, just in case anyone hasn't heard of Atlas 2020, it was a big BSBI project to map the distribution of every flowering plant species in the wild across the whole of Britain and Ireland. We tried to get into every 10 by 10 kilometre square and to do a sample survey of squares within it, like big quadrats. We've had loads of records added this year to the BSBI database, over 100,000. So, okay, far fewer than last year. There might be still some in the pipeline, and certainly far fewer than during the Atlas period, but still an amazing number. And anyway, well done, everyone. It is really great to see everyone getting so enthusiastic about Atlas 2040. Seriously, now Atlas is over. The National Plant Monitoring Scheme should really be our main project. I mean, during Atlas years, NPMS was rather eclipsed, but it's definitely worth taking a look at this project again if you've not been involved before now, if you've not been allocated a square or you've not chosen the square. The idea is you adopt a 1 kilometre Square, somewhere not too far away, or somewhere suitable for you to visit. And you record abundances in quadrats. You visit a couple of times a year. All the data contributes to a national government biodiversity indicator. So it's very valuable thing to get involved with. The other great thing for people taking part is there are some great training resources. Training on habitats by reading experts like Ben Nevis, as well as training on the actual methodology. Here is a map showing the sites that we're looking to fill, the blue dots. There are 3 levels at which people can engage. So beginner level, if you can identify 50 species, you're at wildflower level. There's an expert level, so VCR level, and there's an intermediate. So yeah, do have a look at it. It's a great partnership project. Our partners in that project are Plant Life, UK, CEH, yeah, have a look at that. In Scotland, we've developed our own local project in the BSBI called SHARP, Scottish HectAd Rare Plant Recording Project, which aims to resurvey populations of notable plant species not recorded since 2000 or since before 2000, despite all that intensive atlas effort. So the idea is that it will collect information that will inform future red data lists, rare plant registers, and generally improve our understanding of the ecology and the reasons for decline of some species there. So created a website, a recording form, and the launch project with a talk at Spring Conference. And more recently, I've sent out a feedback form to county recorders, and I'm asking them to respond by the end of the month, telling me how they got on with the project. I tried it in my own Vice County. I'm a joint recorder for Mid Perthshire, and I looked for a number of rarities in that area. 50% success rate. 3 of my most interesting refines are illustrated here on the left. That's Carex vaginata, sheathed sedge. Middle, if you can make it out, that's the Carex capillaris, here sedge, and on the right, coral root orchid, all of which were seen 25 years ago. Of course, what's really important about this project is nil returns. So where population searched for but not found, we really want to know why the recorder thinks that it wasn't refound. Again, we love folk to get involved, and if you'd like to do that, if you speak to your local Vice County recorder and ask how and where you can help. We joined forces with the Botanical Society of Scotland in 2020 on their, in 2021, sorry, on their Urban Flora project, which aims to record in towns and villages of over 1,000 people. So urban areas have been a bit neglected by BSBI botanists in the past. They tend to head for the hills, or at least the open countryside, and neglect the urban areas. But some of our local groups have done a great job in filling gaps in the Botanical Society of Scotland's coverage. So here, for example, our selection of photographs from Michael Phillip in Renfrewshire with the local group of botanists there, along with a couple of great finds like thorn apple and alternate leaved golden saxifrage. However, I'll say no more about that either, because there's another talk coming up later in the programme about the Urban Flora project. But if people would like to get involved, take a look at the BSS's Urban Flora project webpage. So if you haven't perused the exhibition on the Special SBC website, can I really recommend you take a look at a couple of great exhibits about the Darwin Tree of Life project, which Ian mentioned earlier. As Ian said, it's an initiative to do full genome sequencing of all 70,000 plants and animals in Britain and Ireland. It's amazingly ambitious. So anyway, cut a long story short, here I am with Marcus Russam from RBGE, helping to collect samples of one of our rarest plant species in British Isles, Diapensia. It's only known from one plant, one site in the whole of Britain, a hill near Glenfinnan, which doesn't look completely different from any other hill in the West Highlands, but it has Diapensia. Now, if you look closely, that rucksack contains a cylinder of liquid nitrogen, which Marcus has gallantly humped up the hill. And the idea is that the specimen's plunged into the liquid nitrogen. It's stored at -80 in freezers at RBG, and then it's shipped in dry ice to Cambridge, where the sequencing actually takes place. So that was a really fascinating day out. And whilst I was there, I took the opportunity to map the extent of the Diapensia population in 10 by 10 metre cells across the mountain top. Okay, 2021 was the 250th anniversary of the first recorded ascent of Ben Nevis. It was by botanist James Robertson in 1771. He's employed by the then King's botanists and man in charge of RBG, John Hope. So to mark the occasion, a group of RBG botanists, DTOL, Darwin Tree of Life people, the John Muir Trust, local managers, local rangers, and I set off to climb the Ben, exactly 250 days to the day since that first ascent. And here is a little sequence of photographs. Yeah, we chose to go up the Benmore Jerrig Ret, so not the tourist path. It's a really tough route involving a big ascent of 1,500 meters in one day, recording as we go along, of course. And this chap on the right was collecting for Darwin Tree of Life. There we're at the top, though it's improved a little bit. I'm standing beside Simon Milne, the Regis keeper in white. And to mark the occasion, I make a collection of some more common Arctic alpines from this gully. And to finish off with, on the left, Saxifraga cespitosa, tufted saxifrage, and Highland saxifrage, bottom left, at the top of the number 4 gully. And in the middle, I'm pressing specimens, and the weather's improving, and there is Simon, the Regis keeper, duly paying homage to a big patch of Sibbaldea, which is named after one of the founders of RBG, Robert Sibbald, and which forms the logo of the institution. So a very significant species.
Thanks,
so a
Jim.
great day.
We're nearly out of time now.
My last slide. So really, all I've left to say is thank you to all our partners, to Plant Life, to Nature Scot, to RBGE, to BSS, and a special thanks to all our members and volunteers who, as Alistair said, do all that hard work in the field. Okay, thank you.